Okay, YouTubers, we are going to start a new project today. This time it's a Hummel lamp. I actually have a pair of these, a boy and a girl. The girl only has minor damage, so we're not going to film the repair, but this one needs some work on it. There were some previous repairs here where this is broken. It was repaired here before, and that repair has failed, and the alignment wasn't good, so we'll clean that up and redo it. And in a couple other places, this one here was repaired previously also and broken again. So the old repair is still holding, but it broke again and right next to it. That's kind of common with this kind of stuff. It breaks fairly easy because it's a low fired ceramic. Some of first of all, this needs to be a good thorough cleaning. I'll take all the electrical stuff out of it, take the lamp parts off, give it a good cleaning and put some solvents on it, take off the old glue, dismantle the old repairs, and start anew. Another issue is that somebody painted the edge of this base with some gold paint. Can't say why yet until I I'll take it off. It's not supposed to be on there. And I'll correct whatever is supposed to be under it. It's also hiding the Hummel embossed signature, so we'll repair all that. Alright, so now I have to take this apart and take the hardware off of it. And in the meantime, I've taped this back together because I'm going to be moving and manipulating this wire and hardware and pulling this apart. And I don't want to mangle this joint here. If it's rattling around and banging into it while I'm trying to get the wires out, I could add more chipping and further compromise this joint, which I don't want to do. So I've taped it together to keep it from moving, and now I'm going to take the wires off of this. So I'm going to pop the top off this connector. There's a spot where you can press it. And it'll pop apart. There we go. And then I can unscrew the wires. Slots aren't very deep. There we go. Okay. All right now. Now I'm going to have trouble, hopefully I won't have trouble getting this wire back up in here. I've done this sort of thing before. And this part won't come off. Alright, so there's the hardware off. I'll set this aside and clean it up also. It's pretty funky looking. Alright, and now we'll take this up and clean it. Now I can take this tape off. And we'll take all our parts up to the sink and clean it. Alright, so I'm at the sink now, and I've put one of these drawer liner thingies in the sink. It's like a foam covered mesh, and it's a good way to keep from damaging my wares as I clean them. So basically what I'm going to do right now is just take some 409 and hose this stuff down with it and just spray it on there. Get good coverage. Get all my pieces. You'd be surprised how clean you can get things just by doing this without much scrubbing. I'm getting my hands covered with it, so they're getting soaked. And now, make sure I get it everywhere on this thing. Including the bottom. If you're doing this, when you're doing this, these things get very slippery. So that's another reason I have this pad in here. If I do slip and drop something, less chance of getting damaged. So basically we just let that set for a few minutes, and then we'll rinse it off. So what I'm doing now is I'm running the water as hot as I can get it out of the tap. I can barely put my hand under that. Once I get it nice and warm, then I'll turn on my sprayer and essentially just rinse these off. Ooh, that's hot. And it is squeaky clean. I can feel it just by touch that it's very, very clean. Rinse all the pieces off. I'm putting them on a drying pad over here. And the other reason for the very hot water is it helps it dry faster too. You get it really hot, and then when it drips dry, I'll let that drain. And I like to put these on towels. So I'm putting a clean towel on my drain board, and I'm gonna place my objects on it. I'm orienting it so that the water can drip off of it. So I mean, you can already see it's almost dry in certain areas, but just with the heat dries it once the water runs off of it. And that's pretty clean. So now I'm out in my other shop at the sink where I do the really dirty chemical work with taking things apart and using chemicals and all that stuff. So what I'm using on this is this product, Jasco paint and epoxy remover. Most hardware stores in the US carry it. And so I just pour some of this into a dish. And then we put it on things. So I'll be working over here. So I've got some old residue on here. This is a porous ceramic, so I'm going to try not to put too much on it. I just set that on there and then set it aside. Let the chemicals do the work. We put this on and leave it there for about 15 minutes or so. I come back and scrub it off and reapply as I need. This doesn't work on every kind of glue. Doesn't work on silicone. Doesn't work on super glue, CA glue. There's a previous repair here I'm going to try to undo as well. And so, but most epoxies and glues this will work. So I'm going to set that aside. This is a Formica old sink counter, and this stuff won't hurt it. And there's no old glue here, so I'm not going to put any stuff on it. But I do have it on the stumps of these branches. And I'm going to take the paint off of this bottom portion here. So we're just Smear this on here. This stuff works really fast on paint. It is not known why these people painted this. We suspect there was a repair under there and they wanted to hide that, but I don't know for sure. When you're applying this stuff, you don't want to swirl it around. You just want to put it on there and move on. It actually lessens the effect if you smear it around. All right, well, we'll just let this, I'm going to put a little bit more in here. And just let this sit and do its work for 15 minutes. I'll go set my timer and we'll be back and show me rinsing this off. Okay, so it's been 15 minutes and now I'm going to rinse this chemical off. First thing, let's work my way down from the top so I don't get this all over my hands. This is just an old toothbrush. You don't want to press too hard on this. You could easily snap some of these off. Sometimes it takes more than one application of this chemical to get all the glue off. And sometimes we have to wait until it dries to actually see the result. And now we'll do the base. Pretty much just rinses right off. You can see there's an old repair under here. Okay, so I use the screen on the side of the strainer to clean the paint and chemicals off my brush because I don't want to get this on the next thing that I'm cleaning. So I will set this aside to drain, and then I'll be able to see whether I need to reapply that chemical to these parts up here. I know I do have to put it on the bottom here, but something strange going on with this. It looks like it's been through a fire or something, and the old porcelain is stained underneath. That's underneath the glaze. Anyway, that's probably why they painted it. But we're going to make it look like it's supposed to look when we're done with it. So I'm going to let this dry. I'll put it in my drainer here. And we'll come back and reapply it. I'm not going to film that, but we'll just keep doing this until all the glue is off it. Oh, let's look at this. Where's my... These are the other parts that I put chemicals on. I'll do the same thing. We'll just kind of scrub it off. All right, ready to do the assembly now. Not a lot to it, but using my Elmer's glue. Let's set that aside. Alright, so these little clamps. They're real handy. They have these little jaws on them that will flex and bend to the shape a little bit of what you need. Also, you can also bend them out of your way like this and hold things in there. Kind of like this. So that's what I'm going to do here with this piece. So I'm not holding it together with that. I'm just using it to hold it upright. All right, and so you need to be careful when you're clamping things like this that you get it in there good and solidly. You don't want to let go and have it get squeezed, pop out of there, and fly across the room. Alright, so that's just going to hold it in a vertical position while the glue dries. So that's all. So the clamp is not clamping used for gluing, it's just to hold the piece. Now I'm going to set that aside. Alright, I have this very tiny shard glue in, and I'm going to apply this glue with a little toothpick. Nudge it into place. And then I've got another one over here. And I can feel where that locks into place right there. My fingernail along this edge where the two pieces meet to make sure that the alignment is good and proper. Nope. It's worth the time it takes to line up the edges on these. Check and double check. Okay, there's another one. I'll use the clamp to hold that. Only has to hold it for a few minutes.
All right.
So when you're doing this kind of thing, you don't want to rush these gluing, especially like what I did with this piece, where I had to glue little pieces in place on here before I'm going to glue in the piece I'm about to put on. You want to give those pieces time to set. It doesn't have to be fully cured, but you want to get it time for the glue to harden a bit, cure a bit, you know, and it's not fully cured, but it makes it much more secure. You're not going to knock those pieces loose by putting this piece on here. That's the idea, because you just make it complicated for yourself. If you got all these pieces dancing around underneath this while you're trying to make it all fit, you're just making it harder than it needs to be. So, also when you're putting these pieces together, you'll see me doing this sometimes where you'll see my hand moving like this, and I'm setting it into position. And when these break, they can only go back one way and fit properly. So they will, what we call, key into position. So all those pieces that where this broke, hopefully, especially if it's a clean break, they lock together and you know it's all in alignment. And sometimes these Q-tips don't reach in where you need to, so you can pull them and stretch them and make that go where it needs to reach. And here, can you see in here? So I just need to wipe that off. Okay. And so we got the squeeze out. And we settle again, and you'll see more squeezing out. Wipe that off. See how it's still coming out? Can you see those beads on there? All right. So all we can do now is let this sit and solidify. Same thing with the two smaller parts. I'm going to go ahead and let them get fully cured. We'll come back tomorrow and do the rest of this. Just because I have pieces glued in here on the end of this, and so there will be something between this and where it glues on, and I don't want that to be loose because I had trouble getting the alignment correctly, and if I am impatient and try to get this glued on now, I'm just going to make it worse. So let's let this cure, and it'll be nice and strong, and tomorrow we can go put this in place and put some tape on it, and it'll hold it. Well, I have a new addition here. I want to show you. I got this new thing. I have a larger version of this that I use in my carpentry shop. I love this thing. It's a great way to dispense your glue without making a mess, and it's way better than your regular store-bought glue bottle. For instance, I use Elmer's. This has Elmer's glue in it, and what's great about this is it's this neoprene cap on here that parks on here on the cap. This is all replaceable. They send you free ones if this stuff breaks. It has interchangeable tips. This one has a little flat tip on it, very tiny spout, and also has one with a round tip. And also gaskets in the caps, so this thing will not leak. And what's great about it, if you watch this, all the glue, you just squeeze it a little bit and the glue goes right up this thing, and you can actually apply glue upside down. I mean, you can get this into places where you couldn't get an Elmer's bottle, and I can dispense it more accurately with less waste. It's just wonderful. I'll put a link to it in the description below with a lot of the other tools and materials I use. So I know I'm going to get questions about it, so I thought I'd address that before I even start. So, put a little glue in place. A couple of pre-cut strips of masking tape ready. Press it into place. Press the squeeze out. Get a Q-tip on that. Double check my alignment. And press it into place. Now turn it around. We're going to see the other side, and there's one piece. Now I got another one. That will go over here. We're ready to put our milliput on. It is now the next day, and we're ready to fill these joints. Alright, it is the next day. My milliput is cured. And we're going to file it down. The files tend to get clogged with debris. Use a wire brush to clean up the files. This texturing on here needs to be worked around. So that's the process. I'm not going to make you watch me file all of this down. It's just tedious and boring, but you get the idea. Alright, I'm going to put some background color on this with an airbrush. I'm using this color. It's called Titan Buff, which is the background color on this Hummel. And so I've got some masking tape in here is to shield me areas I don't want to get paint on. So just paint in there. Just enough to break up this, soften this white on here. Alright, I've got my color on there. I'm going to pull this shield off. Shoot a couple more spots in here. I didn't mask this hand because I'd put masking on it and then wait for it to dry and then spray it, wait for that to dry and then wipe off, peel off the masking. When I just wipe it off anyway, I might as well just paint it. And if I get overspray on it, I'll just wipe it off, wipe the paint off, and it just saves me a whole lot of time and work rather than trying to mask that hand. So, sometimes it's just quicker to do this than it is to do all that masking. Okay, and I don't need to completely hide that line. I just need to get this background color in there so that when I do the hand painting over top of it, it'll be easier to cover that area with the fill in it. So, a lot of these Hummels are done that way. Part of it is airbrushed, like these puffs on the knees and the cheeks and things, and you can see where it's been airbrushed, but a lot of it is also hand painted, so it's a mixture of the two. In the last episode we did this Titan Buff color on the background here. That's this, and I need it to look more like this background color here. So I mean, you see how it's more tight and buff here? That's the idea here. It's kind of blotchy all over like that. So we're just going to do a little, I can't do that with a paintbrush, so I'm going to do it with an airbrush. So we'll just puff a little color on there on both sides of this band of tight and buff. And then I'll come back and do the undiluted. That color I'm going to be putting on is this color. And that's a mixture of these two, tight and buff and raw umber. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and do the hand painting brush strokes on this, which is this color. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Cleaning off any little overspray I find. So I'm using, I'm going to be doing these brush strokes here with this raw umber color in here over what I just painted, and that requires a bit of a, what we call a dry brush technique. So can you see this? I just put a little bit on the end of my brush, and I just make sure I don't have any large amounts of paint on it, and that's the kind of brush stroke I'm looking for right there. So we just do a little bit of that at a time and blend it in with what's already there. And then just kind of go in every direction. It's a little tricky to keep the correct consistency of paint on the brush, but it's not really critical. Blend it in to the surrounding areas. Okay, a little bit more down here on the bottom. It's worth taking the time to get your brush the way you need it. Blends right in. The hard part's getting in there behind, but it's difficult to see. So, all right, we're good there for now. So, the tree on the back is the tree trunk is a little bit different. That's more of a wipe on, wipe off kind of thing. We'll see how that goes in a minute. So I got this trunk here that I have to do a wipe on, wipe off thing. It's tricky because it's kind of lumpy where the repair was, and it's easy to get that paint in there, and where you don't want it to show off that welt. So the first thing I'm going to do is just wipe on a thin wash where I have a little bit of control. I can get it in those welts and not get too much out here where I don't want to add to it, because there's already some here. If anything you add to this is going to make it darker, so it's a tricky concept. Let's see, yeah, it's starting to show up in the cracks there. I'm hoping I can bury that in the next step. Need it and then wipe it off. Let's let that dry and we'll add some more to that. So now it's just a matter of kind of finessing it and getting a little brush strokey kind of thing going here to break up this, make it look like bark. That's the back of the lamp anyway, nobody's going to really see it. So, just so you don't notice it from the front side. Alright, now we only have left to touch up a little bit on this beak and this one little flower here, or leaf. So I have to mix this color on this hat for this greens on the leaves. I have this little spot here to paint, and I'm using these colors. It's a permanent green, dark, yellow oxide, transparent, and Titan buff. A couple drops of each until you get the color right. That's what I have down here. And we just kind of dry brush that in here. Kind of a wipe it on, wipe it off kind of thing. Put a little on the leaf next to it so it doesn't look so odd. And that's that. There we go. Alright, now let's get this, I got a little green on the end of this stump here. And now I'm going to do this tiny little speck of color on this beak. You know, it's crazy when you have to mix that color. You're going to use so much paint to mix to make one spot. So I'm going to mix this color I just mixed the color for this beak touch-up. And I'm using Titan buff and red oxide. In this case, it's a transparent red iron oxide. And we use Titan buff a lot because it's not titanium white. Titanium white is super powerful, intense white. Often for mixing shades of colors,
it's too much, and it's really hard to home in on a subtle color with that much power behind it. So the black is too black and the white is too white. So I usually, in those cases where I need to lighten or darken a little bit, I use Tighten Buff and Shading Gray, which can't really read this anymore. So this is the Shading Gray. This is the big bottle. I dispense it from here into that little one. It's just easier to work with, and that's why you can't read it anymore. I keep using the same bottle over again. But this is a lot easier to adjust your colors with instead of just using straight black if you need to go darker. This is consequently the same thing with the Tighten Buff. It's a little easier to finesse into a shade using something that's not so intense. So that's how I got this color, of which I literally need a spot right on the beak, and it doesn't even have to be great painting. It's just sort of, it's like the other painting on here. You can see through it in most places. It's just enough to get that white spot gone, and we're good. So I'm going to call that done, aside from I need to seal those things that I just did today in cold glaze. And then following that, we'll put a matte finish on it to make it look like a normal Hummel. So there we go. We're nearly done with this. Okay, we're finishing up these Hummels, these two Hummel lamps that I'm repairing, and we've done a cold glaze on our last episode, or in the last clips, and we need to matte that. So the Hummels always have a matte finish on them. So this is what I'm using. I use Golden's Paints products. This is Golden's. It's kind of a special stuff. They're going to stop making this pretty soon. Anyway, I have a bunch of it. Anyway, it's called Porcelain Restoration Glaze. It comes in matte and gloss. We're using matte today, and this is the medium I'm using to thin it. So just thin it to the degree you need it thinned for your airbrush. And basically I use a glass rod, put stuff in the beaker, and I stir it until there aren't any lumps in it. And that's basically it. So we're ready to go. Gun. Get going. You want to go lightly on this and build it up. If you go too thick, you can't see what you're painting. It just comes out all shiny. It's better to put it on a little bit at a time and build it up. Take the shine off. Can you see that gloss disappearing? And here's our boy lamp, all finished.